Hard to keep a banjo in tune in this weather. But it sounds a lot better if it's in tune, you know? Okay, if you hear anything you know, please feel free to sing along. Thanks for listening, you guys.
Sing and you know about it, like a star on the screen. Watch me tip all on it. Now, baby, whether I'm high or low, baby, whether you're high or low, you got to tip on the tightrope. Yeah, tip on the tightrope. Baby, baby, whether you're high or low, baby, whether you're high or low, tip on the tightrope. Baby, let me see your tightrope. And I'm still tipping on it. I tip on alligators and little rattlesnakers, but I'm another flavor, something like a Terminator. Ain't no equivocating. I fight for what I believe. Why you talking about it? Just talking about it. Some calling me a sinner, some calling me a winner. I'm calling you to dinner, and you know exactly what I mean. Yeah, I'm talking about you. You can rock or you can leave. Watch me tip without you. No, no, no. Whether I'm high or low, whether I'm high or low, I gotta tip on the tightrope. Baby, baby, whether I'm high or low, I got to tip on the tightrope. Now, baby, tip on the tightrope. You can't get too high. We can't get too high. I said you can't get too low. We can't get too low. 'Cause you get too
1, 2, 3. Can everybody hear me okay? Testing the wireless. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, check 1, 2.
Please give a warm welcome to our first speaker, Bernie 2020 Field Organizer, Winnie Zhang.
Hello, Boston. How's everyone doing today? Yeah. Who's feeling the burn? Yeah. All right. Thank you all so much for being here today. My name is Winnie Zhang, and I'm a Bernie 2020 Field Organizer. I'm from Boston, born and raised, and it's a true honor and privilege to organize for Bernie Sanders in my home state to merge two things that I care about. I grew up in South Boston in the Old Colony housing. Just hop on the red line right behind us in a few minutes. I didn't come out here to Boston Common very often. It was a special day out, sitting at Frog Pond, pictures out at the public garden. It felt like a vastly different world. Where I lived, our walls were literally politicians didn't care. They didn't seem to care about our vote, care about. They didn't talk about deteriorating livable minimum criminal. when I hear about this candidate named Bernie Sanders, who was talking about investing in affordable housing, raising the minimum wage to a livable wage, and so many other things that would help my community, working class people, and communities of color, I was intrigued. It was truly remarkable for me to see a politician standing up with and for marginalized communities. For the first time in our national politics, I felt seen and heard. And guess what? I'm not the only one. I had the opportunity to knock doors in my home community just a few days ago, and every single person I talked to was down for Bernie. But the fight, not only for Bernie, but also for the fight for justice that our movement is all about. Yes. For not me, us. And yet, even though folks really like Bernie, there were so many people I spoke with who didn't know when the election was or what a primary election even is. Bernie's message and vision is resonating with so many people all across the city. That's why there's thousands of us gathered here today. But now, more than ever, we need to be out there. We need to be out on the doors, out on the streets, from downtown to Dorchester to Dartmouth, Mass, meeting as many voters at their doors as possible. Victory is within our grasp here in Massachusetts, but only if we fight for it. Over the next 3 days, it's our responsibility as those who believe in justice for all to make sure that every Bernie supporter casts their ballot. Every last vote will count, every last door you knock will count, and there is no time to waste. That's why at the conclusion of this rally today, an amazing team of volunteers will be stationed on the grass over behind the visitor center with a big Bernie sign, ready to send many of you all across the city to get out the vote for Bernie. So please join us as we spread all across the city to spread Bernie's message and win here in Massachusetts. And truly, we can't win without you. We have just 3 days left to do any and everything possible to ensure Bernie victory and transform this country to work for all of us. Yeah. Thank you all so much, and see you after the rally behind the visitor center. Thank you.
Please give a warm welcome now to Bernie 2020 Massachusetts State Co-Chair, Representative Mike Connolly.
Hello, Boston! My name is Mike Connolly, and I have the honor of representing the communities of Cambridge and Somerville up there in the Massachusetts State House. As one of the co-chairs of the Bernie Sanders for Massachusetts campaign, I want to welcome you all to the Boston Common. Thank you for being a part of our multiracial, multi-generational, working class movement to defeat Donald Trump. Together, we will make a society that works for the 99% of us. Are you as excited as I am that Bernie Sanders is in Boston today? Boston is known as the cradle of liberty, the birthplace of the American Revolution. And 3 days from now, on Super Tuesday, we are going to go to the polls and we are going to make the political revolution a reality in Massachusetts. Boston Common is also known as the world's first urban public park. This common has hosted revolutionaries from John Adams to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So it's very fitting that we are here today in support of Senator Sanders. For Bernie is a revolutionary and a true champion for public good. Bernie is fighting for guaranteed housing for all. Bernie will cut the military budget so we can afford to invest in public transportation like the Green Line. Bernie is standing up for public education, for free college, public college and university, and for cancellation of student debt. Bernie will fight for a federal jobs program and a Green New Deal. And last but not least, when we win this election, we will implement Medicare for all. And my commitment to Bernie's agenda and my commitment to this movement, it stems from my own personal background. I was raised in public housing in Norwood, Massachusetts. I spent time in foster care as a kid, benefited from government programs like Head Start. And as I grew up, I believed that government would play a central role in the lives of all those who are on the margins of society. But like many of you, as I grew up and I lived through the Great Recession, and I watched how the Wall Street banks got bailed out, but the foreclosure crisis and the homelessness emergency continued to get worse, I started to doubt whether those ideals I grew up believing in were really possible. I started to wonder, maybe I'm too naive. Maybe I'm a little too optimistic. And I distinctly remember the day when that changed. It was October 4th, 2015, when I went down to the Boston Convention and Exposition Center. And I walked into a room with 21,000 brothers and sisters there for Bernie Sanders. And perhaps the most impressive part of that evening was that there were 4,000 people outside in the rain who couldn't even get into the room. And Senator Sanders spoke to us in that room for an hour that evening, and then he went out into the rain and he gave another speech to those people. And it was in that moment that I knew that real change is possible. Not because of the words of any one politician, but because of our collective power as a movement. And that evening changed my life. I decided to run for office. I was endorsed by Our Revolution and the Democratic Socialists of America. And with the help of hundreds of volunteers in my community, I was able to take on the local political establishment and win. Now I'm working up there in the Massachusetts State House, and in a few minutes, you'll hear from one of my colleagues and fellow Bernie co-chairs, State Representative Nika Alugardo. And Rep. Alugardo and I are advancing legislation called the Tenant Protection Act, which would lift the statewide ban on rent control. And so that's what this is all about. It's not about one individual voice. It's about us coming together to change our system. So, in conclusion, I just want to say that from the civil rights movement of the 1960s to the movements for a Green New Deal and housing for all today, Senator Sanders has always been on the front lines of the fight for social justice in this country. And this is precisely what makes him the candidate best positioned to defeat Donald Trump in November. Super Tuesday is the most important day of the Democratic primary process. So when Bernie's done speaking today, I'm going back to Cambridge to knock on doors and to get out the vote for Bernie Sanders. And tomorrow, I'll be in Somerville knocking on doors for Bernie Sanders. And if everyone who is in this audience joins me, and if we all knock on doors, make phone calls, and send text messages, we will win the Massachusetts primary for Bernie Sanders. Not me. Not me. Not me. Not me. Not me. Not me. Thank you.
Please give a warm welcome now to the co-founder and executive director of the Sunrise Movement, Virginie Prakash.
Hello, how you doing, Boston? Hello, everybody. My name is Virginie Prakash. It is so amazing to be with all of you here in the Boston Commons. I was born and raised in Massachusetts. I went to UMass. I live in East Boston. I love this state. And I am so proud that we can be the home of a new kind of revolution in this country. A political revolution to elect Mr. Bernard Sanders to be President of the United States of America. So for those of you who don't know, Sunrise is a movement. We are building an army of young people to stop the climate crisis and build economic prosperity for all. And my generation has had the specter of climate crisis hanging over our heads for our entire lives. So I live in Massachusetts, but I'm also the child of 2 South Indian immigrants. And India is a place where the climate crisis isn't a distant threat. It is a constant lived reality. And floods. Years ago, we saw these horrific floods in my ancestral home where the floodwaters lifted entire apartment buildings off their foundations and carried them downstream. We saw the creation of over 1 million climate refugees where my family is from in a matter of days. Now, I'm here because I believe that no person should live in fear of losing the people that they love and the places that they come home due to crises that are preventable, period. And at the same time that these floods were occurring, I remember turning on my TV in 2015 and seeing Bernie Sanders on the debate stage talking about the climate crisis as an existential threat, thundering about the fossil fuel billionaires, and talking about this crisis the way my generation sees it. The way my generation sees it. And in that moment, what that campaign did was make thousands and millions of young people like me wake up and realize that there is power on the table that we are leaving, and that our generation will refuse to cede political power to the Wall Street bankers and the fossil fuel billionaires. We are taking over. And I'm on the stage because Bernie Sanders believes in the fierce urgency of now. He knows that we can't wait to act, and a crisis that threatens human civilization as we know it requires a response unparalleled in human history, a Green New Deal. So in January, thousands of young people in Sunrise Movement voted overwhelmingly to endorse Bernie Sanders for president. And that is because there is no politician running for president with as consistent of a record of fighting for working people. There is no politician running for president who has unapologetically stood by his values every day in Washington. There is no candidate better prepared for a fight
with Wall Street and the fossil fuel billionaires. And there is no candidate out there that believes that we need a mass movement of people, that there are no political saviors. It is up to every single one of us to make a Green New Deal possible. And so having President Bernie Sanders in the Oval Office and building a movement of millions just like the one in front of me here today is our best chance and survival. And you better believe that Sunrise Movement will be at his back, thousands strong, knocking doors, calling voters, texting our friends, mobilizing our generation until we win. So Boston, I want to hear it loud from you today. Are you ready for a political revolution? Are you ready? Are you ready to fight for each other as you would fight for yourselves? Are you ready to organize like your lives depend on it? And Boston, I want to hear you. Are you ready to win? Let's take it home, y'all. Let's take it home. Thank you very much.
Please welcome our next speaker, Bernie 2020 Massachusetts State Co-Chair, Senator Paul Feeney.
Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. Are you feeling the burn? Well, come on, Boston, let's generate some heat. Let me hear you. Look at this incredible crowd here on Boston Common in the shadows of the Massachusetts State House, where I am incredibly proud to serve as a state senator and represent the salt of the earth people of my district and working women and men across the Commonwealth. We stand here today alongside each other in the oldest public park in our country, a place steeped in revolutionary history. But today, brothers and sisters, as we reflect on our past, we join together in the present to truly shape our future. You see, each of us has been called here for a reason. Whatever that reason may be for you, whether it exists on the tip of your tongue or in the depths of your heart, whether it's the same one as the person next to you or different than those around you, whether you're motivated by one issue or 1,000 issues, whether you vote in every election or are voting for the first time, whether you are young or old, white, black, brown, no matter where you live, no matter who you love, no matter where you're from, no matter how you pray, you belong here. We belong here. We are here right now, together, with a common purpose and a singular mission. We are here together, brothers and sisters, in the cradle of liberty, with passion, with purpose, with patriotism, with love and solidarity to change the course of our country for generations to come by electing Bernie Sanders as the next president of the United States of America. This election on Tuesday here in Massachusetts and in the weeks to come across this country gives us the opportunity to restore common decency to the White House. To elect a president in Bernie Sanders that lifts people up and gives them hope. A president who believes that working people and unions should be elevated. A president who believes that unions should be given a seat at the table and not a place on the menu. A president who believes that women deserve equal pay for equal work and the right to make their own healthcare decisions. A president who believes that love is love is love is love. A president who lives the ideals of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and understands that true freedom can never be achieved unless economic justice is delivered in this country. A president who walks picket lines and stands up for all workers and the right for seniors to be able to retire with dignity. Brothers and sisters, a president that leads on climate change, ends student debt, stops needless wars, promotes peace across our world and decency at our borders. And a president who once and for all delivers quality, affordable health care for every single man, woman, and child in the United States of America. Brothers and sisters, if you feel that deep within you right now, if you know that Senator Bernie Sanders is the president that we've been waiting for, if you know, like I do, that this movement of not me, us, is what we need to heal this country, then use today as a call to action to unify, to build, to organize, and to vote. Because when we do that, when we move from the transactional to the transformational, I assure you, brothers and sisters, that people-powered politics can never be defeated. And we will stand together on a new day in this country when we elect President Bernie Sanders. Thank you.
Please give a warm welcome to our next speaker, Peter Knowlton.
How's everybody doing? I am from Bristol County and I grew up in Worcester County. I am a retired general president of the United Electrical Radio Machine Workers of America. We call ourselves the UE. Our union was one of the founding unions of the CIO in the late 30s, and we are one of the 2 remaining unions targeted for destruction, but who fought and survived the McCarthy red-baiting era of the 1940s and the 1950s. Our union knows what it's like to be called a socialist, a communist, any other word to try to dehumanize us. We know what it's like. But our members in Vermont and nationally have worked side by side with Bernie Sanders for 35 years. Our members in Vermont have known the kind of representative and organizer Senator Sanders has been since he was senator, congressman, mayor of Burlington, and even before that. And now the rest of the country understands what Vermonters and Vermont workers and the rest of us have known all along. His service to working people is unparalleled. His commitment to economic, social, and climate justice is unparalleled. Tens of thousands of our members lost their manufacturing jobs to corporate greed in the 80s and in the 90s. Over 5 million manufacturing workers lost their jobs to outsourcing and offshoring and just plain greed. As the U.S. deindustrialized itself, it was one of the most unjust transitions in our nation's history. And the establishment didn't care. Bernie Sanders cares. He's got a plan to enact and carry out for the first time in a couple generations, not just a Green New Deal, but a new New Deal, which promises a just transition, a fair transition, to ensure that those who do the work are not treated as criminals, but as victims, that we are a fossil fuel executive greed, and that marginalized and frontline communities have been facing for decades. And you are also the victims of the toxic waste and greed of those executives. Lastly, I want to echo the voices of the rank and file casino and culinary workers in Las Vegas, who demonstrated their respect for their union and their support for Bernie Sanders. The media attempted to portray the local union as not for Senator Sanders because of their health and welfare fund, and therefore, the line went, the members could not support someone who is four square behind Medicare for all. The media was completely ill-informed and ignorant of the reality. Those of us in the labor movement who have been sitting down for decades with greedy employers and greedy private insurance companies know the landscape. I myself have had 3 different health insurance plans from 3 different companies and now Medicare just in the last 5 years. We know that bottom line, workers and our families don't give a rat's ass what freaking health insurance company we have. We care about our choice of provider, completely accessible quality care, and what is it going to cost us? That's it. That's all we care about. And I need to tell you, sisters and brothers and others, 4% of my pay for that is what we deserve and how you begin to make health care as a human right. And I have one final thing. We have a call and response chant in our union, the UE, that goes like this. Who are we? UE. Who are we? UE. Now, I could get you all to start chanting UE, but I don't think that would be appropriate in this venue. And at this time, I'd like to offer an alternative wording for affirmation, hope, and love by revising this chant in the realization that this movement is not just about him. And he is the first to say that. It is about us and him. And we chant, I'll get it, in the spirit of love and solidarity, and maybe even a little bit of Spartacus, that we will say, we can't do who are we, Bernard, that doesn't work, and we can't do who are we, Sanders, that doesn't work, but we can do who are we? Who are we? Who are we? Who are we? Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Boston, please give a very warm welcome to Representative Nika Elugado.
When I say not me, you say us. Not me. Not me. When I say not me, you say us. Not me. Not me. When I say not me, you say us. Not me. 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 You know, that's not a slogan, right? It's a reality. So look around you. Who's here? That's the me. Who's not here? That's the us. You're cheering, but that comes with some responsibility. Some responsibility to bring in people who are not only not us, but not like us. Right? So look around. Who's next to you? And for those of you that are closing your eyes types, which I'm not, close your eyes, sort of, and think about, who do you know? That's also the me. Think about, who do you like? Who you don't like? All the people you know, that's the me. The us is the people you don't think about. So when we say not me, us, we're talking about a revolution that is a movement that moves beyond this rally into the whole nation, right? So when we say not me, us, you're not just thinking about people that think like Bernie, or people that like Bernie, or people that lift up Bernie. We are all Bernie. Because he represents every single person in this country, whether they got here yesterday or have been here for 10 generations like my family or longer. He represents justice for every single one of us, yeah? And that is why we're going to take a moment of silence to honor the fallen on the stolen land that we're standing on right now. Because we all know that this land and the land across the country was stolen from our indigenous brothers and sisters, and they still fight in the struggle. If we have any indigenous brothers and sisters here with us today, part of the me, can you just give a yell or raise your hand so we can sort of look to you during this moment of silence, only if you want to, if you like it. All right, so we're just gonna take 10 seconds to honor the land. It should be an indigenous person doing it. When we have more than 24 hours to put it together, that'll happen. But in honor of the name of all tribes, let's take this moment. Thank you. So not me, us is not a chant only. It's a responsibility. And it's hard. Because like Senator Sanders, it requires us to look at ourselves first and not just point at others to see who is experiencing white supremacy, those people. We take that finger, you might not be into this, but if you're into this kind of thing, point at the person next to you, take that finger and turn it towards yourself. If you're not into miming, do it in your mind. Because without pointing the finger internal, like I've taken assessments on white supremacy in people of color-led organizations. Because whether you're talking about homophobia, transphobia, Islamophobia, sexism and misogyny, racism, anti-black sentiment, colorism, all of these things are different legs of the same beast of hate, and all of us have been guilty. And if you're standing here, what that means to me is you're not going to take it anymore, not in yourself and not in your neighbor, right? So we're going to say, not me, us, and I'm hoping that every single one, including myself, we're going to be reflecting on that in a pretty deep way and what that really means about how we change our behavior when we leave this rally. Not me, not me, not me, not me, not me, not me, not me. All right, so we got that, right? So what an honor it is for me to be here. What an honor it is for Massachusetts that Bernie Sanders is here. Yeah! It's a total honor to be a co-chair, serving with folks. They told me to go longer. Too bad, I'm only like on my first paragraph. No, but seriously, we're defined by a movement, not by a rally, right? We're not defined by a man or a woman or by a superstar. We're defined by the mobilization of a multi-generational, multi-racial, multi-ethnic, multi-class generation of people who are taking justice in America seriously. And we know Bernie can win Massachusetts because, as has been said, Massachusetts is made for revolution. And we need a revolution in America. We need a revolution because our beautiful core values of justice for all, of the pursuit of happiness, have been poisoned from the start, not only with the abomination of enslavement of people and of genocide of people, but even white men who did not own land were not allowed to vote at the founding of our country. It's all the same beast of hate. The lie that says a very small few has the right to all the resources and all the power because they somehow are better equipped to lead than us. Is that true? No. Not me! So the poison's infected every American institution, from voting to schools to government, of course, but to business, even in our families. But the poison has an antidote, and that antidote is not me, not me, not me. That's the antidote that we have the opportunity to deliver to every resident of our nation under a presidency of Bernie Sanders. So this is what Bernie Sanders stands for. It's what we're standing for, not only on this Tuesday, Super Tuesday, whatever, not only in the primary, not only at the Democratic State Convention, not only in the general election, not only in 2020, not only in 2024, but this is the battle of a lifetime. The commitment we're making with Not Me Us is not a commitment strictly only to President Bernie Sanders. It is a commitment to our own behavior change and movement building for the rest of our lives, yes? So Bernie Sanders has lived his life in this way, building communities of leaders around him. And when we leave here, we're going to continue to make leaders of every single one. And it's why I'm honored to lead this rallying cry. It's why I'm honored to be with you, special group of people. It's why I'm honored to know that the polls and everything more real than that will continue to reflect massive, massive numbers of people coming into the revolution. And it's why I'm honored to introduce to you our own Senator, Bernie Sanders!
Whoa! Boston, thank you very much. And I wanted, my wife, Jane, is in Utah. But I wanted you to say hello to my sons, Levy and Dave. My grandchildren, Grayson, Riley, Ella, Dylan, Liza. Thank you. Well, thank you all. A lot of people here, wow. And we are here for two basic reasons. Number one, together we will defeat the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country. The American people will not re-elect someone who is a pathological liar. They will not re-elect somebody who is running a corrupt administration. They will not re-elect somebody who apparently has never read the Constitution of the United States and who is trying to undermine American democracy. And today we say in the cradle, right here in Boston, of American democracy, that we will not allow this country to move toward an autocracy. Nobody, not even the President of the United States, is above the law. We're going to defeat Donald Trump because he is a racist, he is a sexist, he is a homophobe, he is a xenophobe,
He is a religious bigot. And those are his better qualities. We're going to defeat Donald Trump because in the midst of a crisis like climate change and in the midst of a crisis like the coronavirus, we need a president who believes in science. We are going to defeat Donald Trump because not only is he a pathological liar, he is a fraud. He told the American people in 2016 that he would provide health care to everybody. You remember that? He lied. He actually tried to take away health care from 32 million people. Trump said his tax plan would not benefit the rich. You remember all that? He lied. Over a 10-year period, 83% of the benefits go to the top 1%, the people who need it the least. Trump said that he was a different type of Republican. He would not cut Medicare, Medicaid, or Social Security. He lied. If you take a look at his budgets, that is exactly what he tried to do. Massive cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. Now, we're going to defeat Donald Trump for a couple of reasons. Number one, we are putting together the strongest grassroots movement in the modern history of America. This is not just a campaign, we are a movement. We are a multi-generational, multi-racial grassroots movement, black and white, Latino, Native American, Asian American. Trump wants to divide us up, but we are coming together around an agenda that works for all of us, not just the 1%. We are going to defeat Donald Trump because our unprecedented grassroots movement is not dependent on billionaires or super PACs for our funding. We don't have a super PAC. We don't want a super PAC. We don't need a super PAC. We don't go to billionaires' homes begging for money. In fact, we have raised more contributions from more Americans at this point in a campaign than any campaign in the history of America. So let me say it proudly and loudly. This campaign is a campaign of the working class, by the working class, and for the working class. The people of this country, from Boston to California, are sick and tired of a government that represents the wealthy and the powerful. We are going to create an economy and a government that represents all of us, not just wealthy campaign contributors. And by the way, when we talk about why we are going to win this election, it's because not only the American people are sick and tired of a grotesque level of income and wealth inequality, where 3 people own more wealth than the bottom half of American society. We are tired of tax breaks for billionaires when 500,000 people sleep out on the streets of America. We're tired of the rich getting much richer while half of our people are living paycheck to paycheck. And we're going to win this election because the American people are tired of a corrupt political system. We're tired of people like Mayor Bloomberg or anybody else. We are a democracy, not an oligarchy. We don't want billionaires buying elections. And that is why we're going to overturn this disastrous Supreme Court decision on Citizens United. It's why we're going to move to public funding of elections. And it's why we are going to put an end to voter suppression in this country. Now, as some of you may know, the establishment is getting very nervous about our campaign. And tonight they're going to turn on the TV and they're going to find that 10,000 people came out to the Boston Commons. And they're going to become even more nervous. I just read the other day that the military-industrial complex is getting nervous. They're afraid we're going to end endless wars. Wall Street is getting nervous because we're going to break up the giant banks. The drug companies are getting nervous because we're going to lower prescription drug costs in America. The insurance companies are getting nervous because we're going to pass Medicare for all. Now, we're going to win this election despite a lot of the pundits and the establishment saying Bernie can't beat Trump. Okay? Going to be a lot of hurdles thrown in our way, and that's the new one. So let me suggest to all of those pundits about how Bernie can't beat Trump, check out the last 70 national polls in America. And we win 65 of them. Check out the polls in the battleground states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. We beat Trump. The truth is that the only way we beat Trump is when we put together the largest voter turnout in the history of this country. And we are the campaign that can do that. We are the campaign that can speak to disillusioned workers who have given up on the political process. We are the campaign that can bring millions of young people into the political process. And we are the campaign that has an agenda that speaks to the working families of this country, families that have too often and for too long been ignored. We're the campaign that says in America, if you work 40 hours a week, you should not live in poverty. We're going to raise the national minimum wage to $15 an hour. We're going to bring about equal pay for equal work. And we are going to make it easier for workers to join unions. We are the campaign that says we have got to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure, roads, bridges, water systems, wastewater plants, and create millions of jobs as we do that. We are the campaign that says that in America, 500,000 people should not be homeless, and 18 million families should not have to pay 50% of their incomes for housing. That's insane. And that is why we are going to build up to 10 million units of low-income and affordable housing. And it's why we are going to tell landlords, stop the gentrification. Stop ripping off your tenants. And we are the campaign that says that all of our young people have a right to the highest quality education, high quality, universal, affordable child care for all, tripling funding for low-income Title I schools, and because we believe in education, we believe in our teachers. And I hope very much that many of the young people here will give serious thought to going into teaching as a profession. We need more African American teachers. We need more Latino teachers. We need more special ed teachers. And because we want the best and the brightest to go into education, we're going to do everything possible to raise the minimum salary for teachers in this country to $60,000 a year. And our campaign has stood forthrightly, not only now, but for decades, in making the common sense proposition that health care is a human right, not a privilege. Today, we have a cruel and dysfunctional health care system, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. We are the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all of our people. If our neighbors to the north in Canada, if France and Germany and the UK, if Finland and Denmark and Sweden and Norway, if countries all over the world can somehow figure out a way to provide health care to all as a human right, don't tell me the United States of America can't do the same. This dysfunctional healthcare system is costing us twice as much per person for health care as do the people of any other country pay. Twice as much, $11,000 for every man, woman, and child. And yet, despite that huge expenditure, 87 million of us are uninsured or underinsured, and 30,000 die each year in America because they don't get to a doctor on time. And we have a pharmaceutical industry which is not only greedy, it is corrupt. It is involved in collusion and price fixing, ripping us off, charging us by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. And if you want to hear about cruelty, understand that last year, 500,000 Americans went bankrupt because of medical debt. Think about it. Somebody is struggling with cancer or heart disease or Alzheimer's. They got enough to worry about. They're fighting for their lives. And yet under this cruel system, 500,000 of them went bankrupt because of outrageous medical bills. And that is why, whether the drug companies like it or not, whether the insurance companies like it or not, we are going to pass a Medicare for all single-payer program. And that means no more premiums, no more co-payments, no more deductibles, no more out-of-pocket expenses. Nobody pays more than $200 a year for prescription drugs. Health care is a human right, not a privilege. And we will fight to make sure that every American goes to any doctor they want when they need to go to that doctor, regardless of their income. And unlike the President of the United States, we understand that climate change is not a hoax, but an existential threat to our country and the planet. And unlike Donald Trump, our administration will believe in science and scientists. And what the scientists are telling us is that if we are going to save this planet for our kids and future generations, we have got to summon up the courage to take on the greed of the fossil fuel industry and to tell them that their short-term profits are not more important than the future of this planet. And I am very proud to tell you that our campaign has introduced the most sweeping climate change proposal ever introduced by a candidate for federal office. It is a proposal based on the principles of the Green New Deal. It is a proposal that says we can create up to 20 million good-paying union jobs as we transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. It is a proposal that says we understand that climate change is not just an American issue, it is a global issue. And as president, I will reach out to the people in China, Russia, India, Pakistan, Brazil, Africa, people all over the world, and make it clear that maybe, just maybe, instead of spending $1.8 trillion a year on weapons of destruction designed to kill each other, maybe we should pool our resources, fight our common enemy, which is climate change. And when we talk about addressing the crises facing our country, the time is long overdue to address a broken and racist criminal justice system. As Americans, we are sick and tired of having more people in jail, disproportionately African American, Latino, and Native American, than any other country on earth. China, 4 times our size, fewer people in jail than we do. That is a disgrace that we're going to end, and we're going to end it for a start by investing in our young people in jobs and education. Not more jails and incarceration. We're going to make the changes we need by ending cash bail in America, because we got 400,000 people in jail today who haven't been convicted of anything. They're in jail because they're poor, can't afford to pay bail. We are going to end private prisons and detention centers. Corporations should not be profiting by imprisoning fellow Americans. And I'll tell you what else we're going to do. We're going to end the destructive war on drugs. Turns out there are a number of interesting things the president can do with an executive order. And one of them is to legalize marijuana in every state in the country. And what we are also going to do is move to expunge the records of those arrested for possession of marijuana. And when we talk about broken systems, time is long overdue for a major overhaul of a broken immigration system. On day one, we restored the legal status for the 1.8 million young people eligible for the DACA program. On day one, we end a border policy which allows federal agents to snatch babies from the arms of their mothers. And under our administration, we will move forward to pass comprehensive immigration reform and a path towards citizenship. All of us, no matter what our political views may be, are horrified by the amount of gun violence we see in this country. So let me simply say to you that our strong gun safety proposals will be dictated by the American people, not the NRA. Now, Trump and his friends are intimidated by the NRA. The Republican leadership is intimidated by the NRA. We are not intimidated by the NRA. We will pass what the American people want, which among many other things is universal background checks. People who have a history of violence, including domestic violence, should not be owning guns. We're going to end the gun show loophole. And we're going to do something that I have believed in for over 30 years, and that is end the sale and distribution of assault weapons in this country. You know, as a United States Senator, I listened to a whole lot of speeches on the floor. Not the most pleasant thing in the world, I will tell you. And I hear very often from my conservative Republican colleagues who tell us that they believe in small government. They believe in getting the government off the backs of the American people. Well, I say to those hypocrites, if you believe in getting the government off the backs of the American people, understand that it is women who have a right to control their own bodies, not the government. So my promise to you is I will never nominate anybody to the Supreme Court or the federal bench who is not 100% Roe v. Wade. We will move to put into law, codify Roe v. Wade. Trump and his friends, they want to cut funding for Planned Parenthood. We're going to greatly expand funding for Planned Parenthood. So here we are, a few days before the Massachusetts primary, in the most consequential election in the modern history of America. And we are assembled to tell Donald Trump he is not going to destroy democracy in America, that we're tired of tax breaks to billionaires, that the American worker wants decent wages, that the American people want decent housing, that the American people want the best educational system in the world, that the American people are determined to lead the world in fighting climate change, that the American people are sick and tired of racism and sexism and homophobia and xenophobia and religious bigotry, that we're going to fight to create a non-discriminatory society. Whereas Dr. King reminded us, we judge human beings based on who they are, not the color of their skin. But our campaign is not just about beating Trump. Our campaign and the message of our campaign is us, not me. And that is two things. Number one, it understands that we are all in this together. That every family in America has its share of problems. That your family has to care about my family has to care about your family. That's what America is. But we also understand that no president, not Bernie Sanders or anybody else, can do it alone. We understand that in America, the history of real change has always been from the bottom on up, not the top down. That is the history of the labor movement. That's the history of the civil rights movement. That's the history of the women's movement. That's the history of the gay rights movement. That's the history of the environmental movement. That is the history of all movements that have brought about substantive and real change. Now, I'm a U.S. Senator from your neighbor up north. And you know, and I know, that the establishment has enormous wealth and power. You know that. We're talking about Wall Street. We're talking about the insurance industry, the drug companies, fossil fuel industry, military industrial complex, prison industrial complex. In fact, we're talking about much of the whole 1%. So taking these guys on is not easy, and that's why you're seeing so many attacks, so many negative ads, why you're seeing super PACs, fighting us day and night. Because they know this is not an election, it's a movement. It's not just about beating Trump, it's about transforming this country. So this is what I believe. I believe that if we stand together and not allow Trump to divide us up based on the color of our skin or where we were born or our sexual orientation or our religion or our gender, if we stand together, we can take on the 1%, and I'll tell you why. Now, I know I am in a city of great learning with great universities. And I got to tell you, I don't have a PhD in mathematics. But this I do know, that 99% is a hell of a bigger number than 1%. So if we stand together, if we become involved in the political process, if we change the political culture of America, if we understand that men and women have fought and died for democracy, that we all have got to be involved thinking about the issues facing this country. If we do that, if we bring out our friends and neighbors and family members on Tuesday, if we have the largest voter turnout in the history of the Massachusetts primary, we can win here in Massachusetts. We can win the Democratic nomination. We can defeat Donald Trump. And we can transform this country. Thank you all very much.